TAS sports competitions are the focus of the associated schools. These sporting competitions are organised for 8 co-educational independent high schools in Brisbane, Australia. And let me tell you, as high school sports competitions go, this one is definitely worth watching. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 1.4 of TAS Sport. It's worth watching. It's a podcast covering all things that are TAS Sport. So let's kick off this week's Girls Touch episode. I'm Chris and I've got Jack and Sam here with me as we put together our first Touch episode. Hey guys, how are you going this week?
Yeah, very well, Chris. Another exciting round of TAS Sport, and again, good to see it back on the agenda, and great to see the students back out on the touch football field.
Yeah, Chris, it looked like the girls just relished the chance to get out and have a game on the weekend. And from what I saw, the performance on the field was like any other year. It was just the sidelines were a bit quiet, but the kids are playing, and that's what we want.
Yeah, that's right. We want those kids on the field, and it's unfortunate we can't have as many people watching on as we like. But unfortunately, we're not in the position to make those decisions. We just have to go with what we're told to do. Well, let's look at what caught your eye this week. So have a look at Girls Touch last weekend. I'll kick off while you guys gather your thoughts. What caught my eye was Westmac's Year 7 Navy supplementary team. They made short work of that Year 7 competition. We've only got a few teams in there. And they played both Chack and Canterbury in those games and pretty much won all of those. What about you, Sam? What did you see happening in first competition?
Well, Chris, a number of the first games were some incredible scores that came out of that round. So when I look at St Columban's taking on Chack, they managed a 16-1 win, which is pretty impressive stuff. A great win for St Columban's. Ormiston again, 9-2 over Canterbury College, so pretty strong there. JPC against St John's, a 14-5 win, so some really strong teams on that field. And then a 5-5 draw, so a very close game from Westmac against St Paul's. So, first are definitely doing a great job so far.
Yeah, Chris, the seconds comp's always interesting. Sometimes you get some Year 12 girls who, in their final year, they return to sport and they want to play in that seconds comp, so it's a little bit unpredictable. And so the results were Chack 6-3 over St Columban's, a close game there. St John's ran away 12-0 against JPC. Westmac 4-1 over St Paul's, and OC Canterbury had a really close 3-3 draw.
All right. In Year 10, most games were actually pretty close. We saw Chack and St Columban's had a draw. Canterbury got over the top of Ormiston and Westmac beat St Paul's. And JPC did beat St John's, but pretty high-scoring game in that one, 9-6. In Year 9, most of those games were reasonably close, apart from the Chack, who had a convincing win over last year's premiers, which is a little bit surprising there, but they beat St Columban's 6-1. And then we also saw wins to Canterbury and JPC, while St Paul's and Westmac had a draw. What about Year 8, Sam? What do we see happening there?
Well, do you know what, Chris? Quite a close game there for St Columban's against Chack. There's only 2 points in it, so a 4-2 win to St Columban's. So probably if I'd have been in the presence of that game, that might have gone either way. Whereas the other 3 games were pretty strong wins. St John's came away with a 6-0 defeat over JPC. Westmac very similarly over St Paul's, winning 7-0, and then Canterbury taking on Ormiston and coming away with a 7-1 win. So some good games across the board.
Yeah, and in the Year 7 comp, it was 5 touchdowns seemed to be pretty common. St Columban's and Westmac had 5-0 wins over their opponents. JPC and St John's had a 5-5 draw, and then Canterbury 5-3 up over Ormiston. So it's an interesting round, 5 tries.
And finally, then in our supplementary competitions, the senior supplementary game, Canterbury Navy's senior team had a win along with their Year 8 Navy team. So that's a quick recap of our results from last week. Let's have a quick game. This one's called Over and Under. So over and under in this game, I'm going to give you a number and a situation, and I want you to tell me whether the situation will end up over or under that given number. Sam, we'll start with you first, and the number is 36. And the situation, St Columban's firsts will score 36 tries in this shortened TAS season.
Well, do you know what, Chris? I think we're all well aware St Columban's are definitely one of the opposition or colleges to beat. So I'm going to go over, I think, for St Columban's first. But obviously, a shortened season. If we look at last year, they scored almost 80 in a 7-week season with an average of around 11 per game. Obviously, it very much is going to depend on the opposition they come up against in that shortened season. But I'm pretty confident. I think St Columban's first will come away with far more than 36. So I reckon that one's pretty sorted right there.
Okay, Jack, here's one for you, and the number is 12. And the situation is Westmac will score more or less than 12 wins in this shortened season.
Look, I'll probably put a bit of fire in the belly with the Westmac Touch Girls here, but I'm going to say under. Maybe 12 or under. How about that? They have 4 wins already, so they only have to get 8 in 3 rounds, but they've got Chack coming up at home. They're playing at Westmac, Chack is, and they're an athletic group from Chack, so I reckon they'll trouble them. And then they've got St Columban's away, where we all know the strength of the St Columban's there. They might get 6 wins, Columban's. And then they've got Canterbury at home, and Canterbury touched up Ormiston. So, I reckon maybe it's going to put a bit of fire in the belly of those Westmac girls, but I'm going to say 12 or under. How about that? They've got to get 13.
Well, that brings an end to our game corner. We have a couple of special guests here today. Welcome to Lucia and Jess. They're both from one of our TAS schools and both have had interesting sporting careers, which includes plenty of times that they've represented their school in TAS competition. Welcome, girls.
Oh, thank you very much. Good to be here.
Thank you.
Well, to start off, I'll just get you to tell me a little bit about yourselves and what your sporting journey has been like prior to this year. So we'll start off with you, Jess.
Hi everyone, my name's Jess. I am currently in Year 12. I've competed in TAS sports since Year 7 and I compete in swimming, athletics and cross country, and then I play basketball, netball and touch. Outside of school I do competitive life saving, so that involves doing pool rescue, so in the pool towing mannequins and racing in the surf. I've made Sunshine Coast, Queensland and national teams and competed overseas in England quite recently as well.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool. What about you, Lucia? What's your story?
So I've been at this school since Year 2, so I've been involved in TAS sport since Year 4, playing all the way up, but got more involved as it got to Year 7, playing a range of sports, netball, basketball, touch, athletics, cross country, everything. That's really helped shape my ball skills and everything outside of school. I started off as being a netballer outside of school, but my current sport that I'm playing is AFL. I'm currently a part of the Lions Academy, hoping to get drafted through Pathways. I play in the Quaffle W, which is the one below the AFL, and I've played state and nationally, so yeah.
Cool, that's pretty good. I'm in pretty high company here. So girls, you play sport pretty much every term for school in TAS competition, and you also play outside. So just going to ask you a little bit about 2020 and what it's been like this year, because obviously with last term being no sport and this term being even different sport. So how has 2020 been for you?
So it's been a bit of a roller coaster this whole year. Term 1 was pretty normal. We had basketball, which was good. Term 2 came round and we got told that we wouldn't be playing sport anymore, which was a bit of a shock to everyone, and both outside of school, I wasn't playing any sport outside of school either, so I kind of had to leave it up to myself to find stuff to do, keep active in ways, because gyms ended up shutting, all training ended up shutting, so it was good to find ways on how I could cope around not having sport on. But it was also hard because obviously as someone who plays a lot of sport, I've normally got a lot of training and everything around me provided. So
Yeah, that was a similar story for me, I guess. I was really disappointed that TAS swimming was cancelled, as it was going to be my final year and I'd competed in it every year. So that was kind of hard to deal with. And then just the bad news kept on rolling in. And same story as Lucia, all trainings were cancelled. And the main struggle was really trying to find a way to not just keep physically active, but mentally active as well. We both participate in a lot of sport, and that's really what drives our whole lives. So having that big chunk of our lives taken out, that was probably the hardest part.
Yeah, I can imagine that. It's been pretty hard for me as an administrator, just not having sport to go to. So I can only imagine how much more difficult it is for you guys. So you normally participate in swimming, cross country, and athletics, which is great. But this year, with things being a bit different, we're looking at doing our swimming, cross country, and athletics, but with new outbreaks happening in Victoria and in parts of Sydney. Do you worry about how that might impact what we're planning to do here?
Definitely. I would love more than anything to compete, but I think the safety of everyone involved, including the teachers, the officials, and the athletes and the students, safety has to be the number one priority. And as much as I would love to compete and will do anything to compete, I think safety does have to come first.
Yeah, as Jess said, obviously safety is a big thing, but would be disappointed if that opportunity got taken away, because it is our final year in school, so it's supposed to be the big one. But also just to get participation, I've done that pretty much every year, and all those events are so memorable. You know, you get around everyone, all the different schools are there, so hopefully it can follow through in any way possible.
Well, I'm certainly hoping that we're able to do that. That's our plan. Both of you girls are pretty sport-conscious people, but what about the rest of life? How has COVID-19 impacted the way that you'd normally go about your school day or your week?
I definitely lost motivation just as a person every day. I'm used to waking up at 4:30 every morning, and just not having that structure in my life was really hard mentally. I had to find motivations in other parts of my life, so contacting friends all the time and talking to some new people overseas that I haven't got to see for a while because I haven't competed overseas. Just reaching out and trying to stay connected with the people who I would usually see every single day, but because that was taken away, just trying to stay social and did some puzzles and just staying mentally with it and finding that motivation somewhere else.
Yeah, like Jess said, obviously I had to find some new hobbies. I became a Sudoku person and got real involved with that. But not only did it impact our sport, it definitely impacted our school. In year 12, both of us, we had 4 or 5 weeks at home doing online school, which was not the easiest. Obviously, you got used to it. And I kind of enjoyed it because I had that extra time where I could kind of do my own thing and have more time to exercise if I wanted to keep up with it, or go for a walk, or just clear my mind. But it was hard because when you're at home, it's never the same as that teacher-to-person contact. Like, you're not with your friends, it's just not really there. And for quite a period of time, we actually couldn't even see our friends on the weekends and stuff because we were supposed to be in proper lockdown. So I wasn't really seeing anyone, and it was mum and dad were still working, so it was just me at home. So it was a bit different, but yeah.
Yeah, well, that was actually my next question, was going to be, what about those weekends? Because even though we had that time away from school, we're kind of back into school now, but we're not really doing a whole lot of those outside of school things, or maybe you are. So how's that impacting on your social life, and being year 12, where that's normally such a big part of what you do? How's that impacting on what you feel about how life's going for you this year?
Yeah, as restrictions have been eased in the last couple of weeks, we have got back to some normality with training and socialising and catching up with friends. Definitely just being able to go for walks with my family and just really getting, like, as a family, I think we became a much stronger family during the COVID times when we were in lockdown. But as soon as we did break our lockdown, we definitely hung out with friends. We went back to training, going back to the beach up in the early mornings. while there weren't that many people around, just to go for a swim, go for a paddle. That was definitely really nice once those restrictions came off.
Yeah, as Jess said, it was a bit like that. Obviously, on the weekends, it was more family time or my own time, or maybe I could go and see one or two mates. Sport wasn't really on, although when it went to 10 to 20 people, I definitely took advantage of having the ovals around the place just to get out, go for a run, and all that stuff. I was lucky enough to have my own sort of home gym at home, as well as a running machine and a couple other things, so I could kind of stay on top of that. But other than that, it was getting quite boring. Me and my mum were starting to do some puzzles every night, seeing who could be the first to finish them, but it just got a bit, we all got sick of it towards the end, because it was a bit repetitive and there was no structure. Like, you wake up and it'd be like, oh, what's on today? And you could kind of do your own thing, as well as me not having my license or anything, so I was stuck at home. I couldn't do anything unless I walked, or was lucky enough to catch an Uber if I was desperate. But yeah.
Okay, girls, it's been a great chat, but I've got one more question for you. Do you have any pearls of wisdom that you'd like to share? Like maybe give some encouragement to younger players if you were talking to your younger self about your journey. What you might say to that younger self in Year 7 starting out in TAS sport. Or maybe something about how you've managed this world that we find ourselves in at the moment. I know there are some people who feel pretty down because life's so restricted for so long now. It isn't really easing off much with those new cases being found. So do you have any messages for how you managed to maintain positive throughout this?
I think looking back at my time in TAS sport, it's definitely, if I were to tell my Year 7 self one piece of advice, it would definitely to be just enjoy every single game, every single moment, every single training session, because in a blink of an eye, it's going to be finished. I remember my first game in Year 7 playing netball. I remember all those times and all those Saturday mornings, and I can't believe it's gone so fast. So definitely treasure every single moment you have playing sport, because as we've seen, it can all be taken away in an instant.
Yeah, definitely. I would say to my younger self to try everything, try new things. You know, I wasn't the kind of person who liked running, but I still do cross country, and I am still doing it now. And just all the different sports, try and do a sport every term if you can, even if you're not good at it. It just gets around each other and you bring the community together. Also, just with everything, never give up. Like, always try and find a positive out of a negative. You know, there's always something there that you can go, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. Especially with everything being so hard now and restrictions and everything. You just gotta find yourself, find something and stick to it and stick with it, and you'll be right, and just keep going.
That's great. Thanks very much. It's been fun, girls. I've really enjoyed our chat this morning. Thanks very much for coming in. Let's thank you to Lucia and Jess, and we might move on.
Thank you very much.
Let's have a look at our predictions for next week. Here we go with our round 2 predictions. The first one is, what's your sure thing? Jack, we'll start with you.
Look, I'm not sure if it's a sure thing, but I reckon that St John's are going to really trouble Ormiston College in seconds. They had that 12-win victory over JPC, and while Canterbury are a tough opponent for Ormiston, they had 3-all the result last week, I reckon that St John's are going to trouble Ormiston.
Do you know what, Jack? It's funny you say that. Having seen St John's last weekend and a bit of a fire in the belly, I reckon St John's are going to bring some trouble to Ormiston across the board, if I'm honest. So I'm with you on that, but definitely in all year groups. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Okay, mine is over at the local derby between St Columban's and St Paul's, and I think that St Columban's Year 9 team will bounce back and have a win this weekend against St Paul's. All right, prediction number 2. What will be the closest game of the weekend?
Chris, I mentioned that Westmac have set that 13 win mark for them, not 12. And I reckon that the round that they have against Chack is going to be really close. Westmac could win 6. Chack could win 6 from what I see. So I'm not hoping that Westmac gets 0, but I just reckon that's going to be the real close round.
Well, I think, Chris, if we look on the first round that's just been and gone, as I say, St John's have really shown some fire in their belly. But if we look at the results from last year's touch football as well, I think the close matchup is certainly going to be next weekend, Ormiston College against St John's, especially where their Year 10s are concerned. So we'll watch this space.
Okay. Well, I've got one that's out of the box. It might sound a little bit weird because one of these teams was well beaten last weekend and the other one had a good win. But mine is also Ormiston and St John's, and I think their Year 8 teams are going to fight out a close match. Let's move on then to our final prediction. Prediction number 3. What 2 schools will have the closest tussle throughout the day?
Well, I just mentioned Westmac and Chack there, but I also think what you guys were just alluding to a bit before is the closeness of St John's and Ormiston. So I reckon both those rounds will be pretty close, to be honest. But yeah, Sam, what do you reckon?
Oh, I think Canterbury, John Paul College is going to be a tough round across the board where touch football's concerned. I think there's going to be a good number of games there. They're going to be pretty close. So I'm going to go Canterbury College and I'm going to go John Paul College.
Yeah, well, for mine, Sam, I'm in agreement. I think that Canterbury and JPC, another local derby, I think they'll have a really tight tussle this weekend. Should be a good day out at Canterbury watching some good touch football. It's a shame we can't get more people out there to have a look at it, but I'm sure those people who do get there will enjoy what they see. Well, there you go. Those are our fearless predictions for round 2. I think that brings us to the end of our podcast. So thanks to Jack and Sam. We hope to get you both back in sometime soon.
No worries, Chris. Good to be on your show.
Thanks, Chris, and good luck to everyone that's playing this weekend.
That's it from us this week. You've been listening to TAS Sport. It's worth watching. On behalf of Sam and Jack and Lucia and Jess, I'm your host, Chris, signing off for this week.